I'd just like to thank you for dropping by. I know in the title it says the NHS is broken, and I'm not suggesting we get rid of the NHS before all the hard left start bombing me with dislikes and everything else. I just believe that we need to find another way of managing the NHS. There is better ways. In Europe, they've managed it, where everybody gets a free medical system. I know you have to pay for it in America. Don't ask me what the choice is, but there's plenty of people on YouTube that have mentioned it. Maya Tuesday's mentioned it. So, go and take a look at Maya's. Okay? If you've had a relative or a friend die in the past couple of years of cancer, COVID, heart attacks or anything else, I'm sorry for your loss. Far left is my mum, and she collapsed on the 12th of November last year. And some lads came along, helped her back onto her feet, then she collapsed again, so they phoned for an ambulance for her. And this was in the morning. So they got a chair, umbrella, because it was winter and winter to help protect her and keep her off of the floor. Police officer come along in a car, took her home and said you'd be better off waiting in your home. And at that point, left her. Anyway, it was 8 o'clock at night. Is when I got to my mum's, and I didn't know any of this had happened, and a few seconds went in, a few seconds later a knock on the door, paramedic was there. Yeah, when the paramedic came into the house, he checked her statistics and stuff like that, but all he was interested in is looking at his mobile phone. I'm not interested in putting blame on anybody, to be truthful, not looking for anybody to be psyched. I'm just not happy with how my mum was treated. Well, anybody was treated over the past couple of years. You can blame the government for it, but I don't. Because the management teams at the hospitals make the decisions as well. My mum's partner Ray, who was pictured in the middle, came up the Saturday morning and decided to take her to a walking centre because she was still no better. And at that point at the walking centre, the nurse said there's more wrong and sent her to the hospital. And she also said that the paramedic should have seen this, but didn't. So Ray took her to the Northern General, which is in Sheffield, England, if you're watching it from outside England. And when Ray rung me, he told me mum had been taken into hospital and was being kept in. So my wife from the hospital for us to go and see him, even though my mum asked for us. I was told I wasn't able to go because of COVID, which I thought fair enough. I'll abide by their rules, even though she was asking for us, and Ray said he was the only one to be allowed. So I went to see my brother and found out he was in the hospital with my mum, even though I was told I wasn't allowed to go, which, to be truthful, I wasn't happy about, as you can imagine. Right, my mum found out on her own on the Sunday that she'd got cancer, and they said they weren't going to treat her because she'd got a matter of months, not years. She got bowel cancer. And she were a vegetarian, so what I don't get is she's paid into the system all her life, but yet they still refuse to treat her. But anybody that comes over illegally gets loads of stuff given them, but that's beside the point. Anyway, my mum spent a few days in hospital, come home, and she told me herself that she'd got cancer. It wasn't good, but she was going to the Western Park Hospital, which is also in Sheffield. It's a cancer hospital. And it was a couple of weeks before she got her appointment, and they said they could try something, so they started treatment, and so it was like one off, one on. So they took meetings every fortnight, which I think is far too long, especially since the cancer's growing. And there we go. That's how it was going from that point. My mum tried to get things from a doctor after the hospital, and her GP was a complete waste of time. All they wanted to do was put her on cheaper medication, if you could call it medication. Because of the lump in her bowel, she couldn't eat, so she was having things like Fortisip, which is an all-in food supplement. Oh, this is hard, I'm sorry. Anyway, during this time, Ray decided he was moving his life up here to be with my mum. So he, on days that my mum was in hospital, he'd go and fetch his stuff and do whatever he needed to do. And Ray, if you do listen to this, I'm grateful. Ray was finding it hard himself, trying to do his job, look after my mum, and good on him. He managed it. He abused himself a little bit by drinking way too much at times, but that was his way of coping with it, because he lost his mum I think it was the year before. So it were carrying on like this for a few months. And then on one day, my mum went for... No. My mum had got an appointment with the specialist. Ray got her into his car, got her down there to Western Park, and he were bringing her home, and we found out she couldn't walk. The cancer had got into her spine, and they decided to keep her in. My mum didn't have a choice. That was the best place for her, to be truthful. And I'll be back in a sec. Right, as I said, my mum was in the Western Park Hospital, and they got COVID, so no one was allowed in, and Ray was the only one when he could, but my brother managed to get in as well, but I didn't. So I never got to speak to my mum again in person. Then they transferred her to the Macmillan building in the Northern General Grounds, and by the time she got there, apparently she was good for one of the days, but I was waiting to find out if I could go in because I couldn't wear a mask. I was exempt, so they weren't letting me in at the Western Park. Anyway, I got in to see my mum. She was asleep all the time. She was in pain, you could see it, and she made noises when they touched her because of the pain. I want to thank the Macmillan unit, the staff, the doctors, nurses. Thank you for what you did for my mum and Ray, her partner. On the right hand side, just to let you know, that's my mum, my nan and her sister. She's got other brothers and sisters, but I don't have a photo with them. Yeah, so my mum died a few days later. My mum died on the 16th of the 3rd, 2022. And I want to thank Ray because he's not up in Sheffield anymore. He went back down to where he was from originally. I want to thank the lads that helped her when she needed it. And I want to thank again the Macmillan unit in the grounds of the Northern General. I appreciate everything you've done. I know doctors, some doctors and nurses work extremely hard, especially in the accident and emergency. But I do feel that... No, I can't say it. This is where I'm going to leave it. Thank you for listening. Before anybody says, oh, it must have just been a one-off. I found out about... I'd consider her a friend. She's... Met her when she was walking her dogs. She's in the late 60s, I believe. And she's had a stroke just recently. And the ambulance service left her out on the street for an hour and 45 minutes. Her name is Ethel. I hope she recovers from this. But after an hour and 45 minutes, who knows? Apparently the hospital didn't even tell her daughter that she was in hospital. So she didn't know her mum was in hospital at that point. Anyway, I hope Ethel recovers. Lovely lady. And the world will be worse off without her and my mum.